I'd like to begin by telling you guys a story. It starts 2 years ago in a little town called Tatong on the Thailand-Myanmar border. We were there with my class, spending a week building a preschool. There are a lot of Burmese refugees in the area who wouldn't get education otherwise from the government, so it was important to get these kids into education. Building the preschool was amazing. To this day, I have a deep appreciation for concrete mixers, after spending hours in the hot tropical sun mixing cement for the foundation. I remember the kids watching us as we tried to figure out how to line the bricks up straight and hang our mosquito nets to sleep under. I remember about 1 million rounds of Duck, Duck, Goose with kids whose smiles were as bright as the sunshine. It was an amazing experience, one I won't soon forget. But I came away from the trip with this little nagging feeling. Did this actually solve the problem? We built a school, or at least we started to anyway. It turns out a single week and 50 untrained city kids aren't exactly a crack construction team. The locals ended up finishing it. So why did I spend hundreds of dollars to do what anyone there could have done? I wonder if you have a similar story. Building houses in Guatemala, digging wells in Africa, maybe even up north here in Canada. It's an experience that most of us have had, and a story that our culture loves to talk about. An American entrepreneur travels to Argentina, where he sees shoeless children everywhere. Upon returning to America, he starts selling designer shoes with the promise that for every pair you buy, a child in need gets a pair, 1 for 1. An Irish musician travels to Africa and sees the crushing results of third world debt. Upon returning, he hosts concerts and meets politicians to lobby for international debt relief. For us, the problem was a lack of education. So we went to Thailand, built a school. But did it solve anything? This summer, I read a book called When Helping Hurts by 2 guys called Steve Corbett and Brian Fickard. And one of their main premises is an idea that I think these stories clarify. It's the idea that the way you see a problem shapes the solution you design. The way you see a problem shapes the solution you design. So if the problem is shoelessness, the solution is Tom. Starving African children, the solution is food aid. If the problem is disease, the solution is clean water. If the problem is illiteracy, the solution is education. If the problem is AIDS, the solution is antiretroviral drugs. If the problem is capital, maybe the solution is microfinance. But can it really be that easy? I think wells and pills and schools are vitally important, but poverty is more complicated than shoelessness. To design a solution, you need a proper view of the problem. So what's our view on poverty? Since the end of World War II, the most influential actor in economic development worldwide has been the World Bank. They're the ones responsible for billions of dollars in aid money, all channeled into a single stated goal: help reduce poverty. Unfortunately, for this group, poverty as a problem often gets shortened to 3 letters: GDP. For half a century, the World Bank defined poverty essentially as a lack of income, and as a result, designed neoliberal or market-based capitalistic solutions that usually ended up with a lot of factories and single export-based economies. It hasn't worked. But in 2000, the World Bank published a rather shocking report. The group for whom GDP was the single most important statistic released a report that didn't have any charts or graphs. It was a 3-volume book based on a single premise. Instead of economic projections, the authors traveled to over 40 countries and listened to thousands and thousands of stories. They asked the question, what is poverty, to the true experts, those suffering from it. Their purpose is captured by a man from Ghana who responded, "Poverty is like heat. You cannot see it, you can only feel it. So to know poverty, you have to go through it." The researchers ran computer analyzations and pulled themes from the field studies to gain new perspectives on what poverty, what the problem, really is. And the results were as shocking as the methods. A new definition of poverty emerged, one that wasn't so much about money and stuff as voicelessness and vulnerability. Poor people describe poverty in terms of going home day after day and not having food to give to their children. Poverty is about power, Farmers forced to sell their crops at a fraction of export value because they have no voice to negotiate. A woman from Moldova says, "For a poor person, everything is terrible. Illness, humiliation, shame. We are cripples. We are afraid of everything. We depend on everyone. No one needs us. We are like garbage that everyone wants to get rid of." So this report and When Helping Hurts point out that poverty is about money and malaria nets, and more about humiliation, voicelessness, shame, and isolation. Poverty is the fields of stunted crops, utterly degraded by years of subsistence overplanting. Poverty is the student sitting at a different table at school because his lunch is provided by the government. Poverty is the trapped feeling of a mother who has failed over and over until she starts to believe that maybe it really can't be done. Poverty is broken relationship with the earth, with others, with yourself, and with God. This is significant because the way you see a problem shapes the solution you design. There's nothing I can pull out of this bag to deal with stigma. But if the problem is broken relationship and imbalance, then the solution must be reconciliation, fixed relationship, restored power, everything interacting in a healthy way, life and growth, not suppression and marginalization. This idea of everything being in right relationship has a name. The Bible calls it shalom. We translate it peace. If the problem is broken relationships, the solution has to be shalom, reconciliation. And this really excites me because Jesus was relational too. You look at his life and over you see these people, prostitutes, political elite, bug-eating hippies, and working class Joes. Jesus met each of them where they were at, but he transformed them into something better, connecting them with him and with others. Jesus was someone who advocated radical things that didn't mesh with the way society functioned. He constitutionalized this way of thinking in a speech that we call Sermon on the Mount. He begins, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful." And then, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Jesus doesn't say, "Blessed are the peaceful, the ones who have it all together, who don't worry or fight or stress anymore." He says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, the ones who step into the messy, complicated, and ugly situations, the ones who are irritated enough to do something. Blessed are the shalom builders, for they will be called children of God." And this is the only time in this passage that blessing is put into the context of relationship. Because when we step into the shoes of poor people, working to heal the broken and change the system, we are building our relationship with God. We are becoming his children. This isn't something that we just made up. We have the example of Jesus, the ultimate peacemaker, who took off all power and pretense and reconciled the relationship between man and God. Jesus built shalom at the expense of his life. And with this, blessed are the peacemakers. He calls us to do the same. So what would this look like for us? If the problem is broken relationships, the solution is reconciliation. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go on a trip to Niagara to learn about homelessness. Our team worked with a shelter connected to a church, and I came and braced for awkward conversations and uncomfortable interactions that would somehow end up helping them. And I couldn't have been more wrong. The very first evening, we joined the shelter community for rock climbing. And there was this atmosphere of life in the room. Connections happened naturally as we instinctively cheered each other on. Up on the wall, there wasn't this, "Oh, I'm a student and you're homeless." There wasn't an us and them. There was just us. The solution is relationship. So yes, by all means, we need to go out and build schools and fight AIDS and hand out books and shoes. But don't trick yourself into thinking that they are the point. Because if you think that things are the solution, your idea of the problem is messed up. For everyone we talked to in Niagara, the programs were secondary. They all talked about this one thing, community, relationships with people who walked alongside them no matter what. In a week, I didn't solve anyone's problems. We didn't go and hand out soup or reform addicts. We certainly didn't build a preschool. but we made friends. Building shalom is about taking away shame, demarginalizing the vulnerable, giving a voice to the powerless. It's all about relationship. Thank you.